Welcome to Africa Live on CCTV News with me, Beatrice Marshall, in Nairobi. Also coming up in the next half hour. Boosting cooperation, East Africa's leaders meet in Entebbe and announce new pipeline and plans to remove trade barriers. And punching to glory, South Africa's female pro boxer Gabisile Tshabalala prepares for contest for her first world title. U.S. President Barack Obama heads for his first major tour of Africa this week, starting in Senegal later today. Now, Washington is keen to cozy up to Senegal, a country it has praised as a solid and emerging democracy. Last year, Senegal's election, which saw Macky Sall unseat Abdoulaye Wade as president after 12 years in power, was seen as an example of Senegal's good governance. President Obama was impressed and said as much when Sall and 3 other African leaders traveled to Washington in March of this year. Now, Sall then won more praise when the authorities went after Karim Wade, son of the outgoing president Abdoulaye Wade, and charged him with a series of fraud totaling some 1 billion euros. Like his predecessor George Bush in 2003, President Obama is set for a symbolic visit to Gorée Island off Dakar, a key port in trade of slaves between Africa and the Americas. He will then travel to South Africa before wrapping up the trip in Tanzania.
What he is doing is highlighting 3 countries in 3 different regions of the world, Anglophone and Francophone, in East Africa, in Southern Africa, and in West Africa. Countries that are committed to democracy.
Meanwhile, Senegal is making preparations ahead of President Obama's visit. The country's police force has launched a major security operation to deal with any threats. CCTV's Desiree Cannon tells us more.
Senegal Mixed Brigade seeks to fully condition Dakar and its immediate environs ahead of the arrival of the U.S. President Obama in the West African country. The population is also pledged to reserve Obama a warm welcome.
We want to welcome our African brother, the United States President Barack Obama, and we are waiting for him. We appreciate all the security measures that are being put in place for him.
We're all here to create a family atmosphere for Obama before his arrival. Security and peace are guaranteed here. We're all happy to welcome Obama. I say once again, welcome to Obama.
Welcome to Africa.
The citizens of Gorée Island on the Senegalese coast, where Obama is expected to arrive for a visit, are also waiting to embrace him. President Obama's visit to Senegal is seen by many as a democratic bonus. Security continues to be strengthened, and the place where the U.S. president will spend his 2 nights in Dakar still remains a mystery. Desiree Cannon, CCTV, Dakar, Senegal.
Well, the East African country of Tanzania is the last stop in Obama's Tri-Nations tour of the continent. Tanzanians are currently in full gear, ensuring they are prepared for the historic visit, which they hope will raise the country's profile. CCTV's Jen Keo reports from Dar es Salaam.
Indeed, it's 6 days to that historic visit by the U.S. President Barack Obama to Tanzania. And even though it may not look like it, I'll certainly tell you that preparations are underway to give him a grand reception. And just to give you a brief overview of what's happening at the moment, I'm at Samora Street in downtown Dar es Salaam. And usually, this is one of the busy streets here in Dar es Salaam. We usually have a line of traders, hawkers selling their ware in the middle of these streets. And what has happened over the last couple of days is that they've had to be evicted. The government has evicted them from the streets so that they can prepare for the cleanup exercise ahead of that visit. Of course, the U.S. says that the visit to Tanzania is all about economic cooperation, democracy, and strengthening democratic institutions. Depending on who you ask, other quarters are saying it has far much meaning, especially in connection to China. But that's a story for another day. But of course, for the locals, the visit has also drawn varied views. Majority of them believe that it will raise the country's profile globally.
I'm feeling very happy because, as I have said it before, there are about 54 African countries, and then he has decided to visit Tanzania. This is a great honor to us.
Actually, I feel it is great, but I don't know the main reason why he came.
In Tanzania, we have the culture of welcoming whoever comes. So that is only what I can offer. Out of it, I don't have any hope with the Obama visit.
Now, once the U.S. president arrives here on Monday, he will hold talks with his Tanzanian counterpart, Jakaya Kikwete. We also know he's going to be holding a meeting with business executives. We understand about 800 business executives from the U.S. are accompanying the president. And we also know that he won't be going on safari, largely because of logistical challenges. But this has not stopped the tourism industry from taking advantage or capitalizing from this particular visit by the U.S. President Barack Obama, largely because it is the third time a sitting U.S. president is visiting Tanzania in a span of 13 years.
Well, despite the worries over the health condition of former President Nelson Mandela, the U.S. President Barack Obama is still planning to visit South Africa. He is due to fly in on Friday as part of his three-leg Africa tour. And South Africa's international relations minister says life cannot stop just because Mr. Mandela is sick.
The program is almost finalized. Logistics finalized, key points of discussions finalized. Will there be demonstrations? Yes, this is a democratic country. So the official line of the South African government is we will receive President Obama like we receive all other heads of states, friendly heads of states to South Africa. In a democratic setting, there will be those who really still feel they also want to be heard. As long as we do it peacefully and following the laws of the land, we think that should just be. But from the side of government, we are very elated. We are very satisfied with the level of preparations.
Well, let's stay with Mr. Mandela's health story for the moment and bring in CCTV's Guy Henderson, who has been following this story very closely and is currently in Pretoria outside the hospital where Nelson Mandela has been receiving treatment. Guy, day 19, what is the mood like there in South Africa, in Pretoria?
Well, after news on Tuesday that various members of the Mandela family, as well as some former and current South African cabinet ministers, had gathered for a meeting of some sort down in the Eastern Cape in the village of Kunu, which is the place that Nelson Mandela has since his childhood called his home. We now understand that various elders from that same village in Kunu are due to arrive at this hospital, perhaps at some point on Wednesday, to visit Mr. Nelson Mandela. This comes after reports as well that senior Archbishop in South Africa has held a prayer service for the families, in which he's quoted as asking for Mr. Mandela to be allowed a peaceful and perfect end to obviously a very remarkable life. Then I think also one newspaper article possibly sums it up by saying that this is Mr. Mandela's final struggle. So people here are obviously very concerned. A lot of people here, as you can see, gathering to pay tributes. A lot of journalists here now, a lot of people leaving flowers and cards, and we'll just pan the camera around now so you can take a look at that. At the same time, however, from what we understand on Wednesday, President Jacob Zuma is still on his way to Maputo in Mozambique for a summit of regional leaders. And as you say, according to South Africa's foreign minister on Tuesday, US President Barack Obama is also still planning to visit South Africa this week.
All right, Guy, today as well is another significant one in South Africa's history. What can you tell us about that?
It is indeed. This day in 1955, a group which became known as the Congress of the People gathered together in a town called Kliptown and put together what has become known as the Freedom Charter. Now, what that basically was the first time that a gathering of many different strands of thought, many different racial groups got together and really set a new tone for a more united front in the battle against the oppressive apartheid government, in the battle for racial equality. Out of that document, out of that meeting came this Freedom Charter, a document which basically set the founding principles, the fundamental principles for the struggle for racial equality. Most notably, perhaps, a phrase used in that document, conjured up in that document, which many South Africans still know today, and that is the idea that South Africa belongs to all those that live in it. Now, of course, that wasn't the case then. It took more than 40 years, or almost 40 years, for that to become a reality. And that was, of course, a struggle that Mr. Mandela himself led the African National Congress, led the South African people through. So at a time when his health is obviously ailing, when people are very concerned about his health, his great achievements have obviously been brought into sharp focus. And the 26th of June is a particularly significant, symbolic day when looking at that history.
All right, CCTV's Guy Henderson following for us very closely Mr. Mandela's health situation outside his hospital in Pretoria. Thank you. We'll take a short break here on Africa Live, but still ahead on the program. A UN green light. The UN Security Council authorizes July deployment of peacekeeping force in Mali. You're watching Africa Live on CCTV News. Now, as the United Nations prepares to take over from the African-led mission in Mali, top officials called on Tuesday for member states to contribute critical resources, including personnel and equipment. This, they said, was to ensure the UN's multidimensional integrated stabilization mission in Mali, or MINUSMA, could support the country with key tasks like implementing a ceasefire accord and preparing for next month's elections. Concern has been raised over the involvement of Chadian troops in the UN force who are suspected of using child soldiers. However, the United Nations has pledged to conduct a thorough screening, and Chad itself has vowed to clear its ranks of any minors. The United Nations Special Representative to Mali and Mali's Minister of Foreign Affairs said the June 18th agreement between the transitional government and armed groups in the northern regions, among other positive steps, would help ensure a smooth transfer of power for both MINUSMA and the country's new government.
Although a first and a preliminary step, I think the agreement is critical, not only because of the forthcoming elections, but also because it commits the parties to a post-electoral inclusive dialogue. And for it to be successful, the dialogue would need to be comprehensive, I said inclusive, and tackle the root causes of the recurrent crises in Mali.
The cessation of large-scale fighting on the outskirts of the main cities of the north, the routing of armed groups and the drastic reduction of spoilers' capabilities, thanks to the combined effort of the Malian, African and French armed forces, are favorable indicators of the transfer of power from MISMA to MINUSMA within the time limit set by Resolution 2100.
Libya's National Assembly elected Minority Berber as its new president on Tuesday, and this after his predecessor quit under a new law which bans ex-associates of ousted leader Muammar Gaddafi from office. Nouri Abu Sahmain beat 9 other candidates with the backing of the political arm of the Muslim Brotherhood, the Justice and Construction Party, according to lawmakers. He'll now oversee the setting up of a committee tasked with drafting a democratic constitution for the oil-producing state. Abu Sahmain is the first Berber to hold such a senior government post after decades in which Gaddafi suppressed the Berber community and language. Here's what the newly elected leader had to say.
God willing, we are trying, and I promise that myself and all members will work as one team. We will work as a cell. We will not wait for the official protocol that might take us away from the needs of the Libyan people.
This year marks the 37th anniversary of diplomatic relations between China and the Seychelles island. The two countries are celebrating this milestone with the launch of a visa exemption program for Chinese tourists traveling to the Seychelles, effective today. The country is also building an offshore trade hub, bringing access for Chinese businesses to the Middle East, Africa and Europe. Laura Luo reports.
The Seychelles is a traveller's heaven in the middle of the Indian Ocean. It's not only known for its breathtaking beaches, the rich resources, but also its luxurious holiday services. Now, this dream holiday destination is within easy reach for both Chinese tourists and businesses, as they don't need an entry visa anymore. China and the Seychelles signed bilateral agreement in May to allow their residents to enter each other's border and stay for no more than 30 days. Its chief trade representative, Mr. James Quincy Liao, says this opens new doors for Chinese businesses eyeing opportunities in the Middle East and Europe.
It's convenient for bilateral trade, especially Chinese firms, to use the Seychelles as a transportation pit stop in the Indian Ocean. It can conduct trade on large scale through a platform like the Seychelles to Africa, Middle East and Europe. The Seychelles and nearby countries have over 800 million people. The consumption power of these people is huge.
Mr. Liao also says the island is aiming to become a financial hub where foreign companies can enjoy tax benefits.
Business from different countries can use the Seychelles as a platform for trade and deal with finance and capital operation, as well as funds management for family businesses. There are about 20 to 30,000 offshore companies in Seychelles, and we hope this number can reach 50,000. We will serve these companies according to international laws.
The country is also stepping up its infrastructure to facilitate foreign companies to establish branches on the island. It has recently opened 3 weekly flights between the island and Hong Kong this June and has already seen a 67% hike of tourists compared to last year. With the new visa exemption coming into play, China is set to become an increasingly important market for the island. Laura Luo, CCTV.